Hello, friends, and welcome back to another NBA Insider video live stream notebook right here on the Bleacher Report app and available on YouTube as well. My name is Jake Fischer, your resident NBA Insider for all things Bleacher Report, and we finally have a Jonathan Kuminga update after months of no back and forth, of just kind of a standstill between Golden State and their 22-year-old bouncy swingman, the guy they took number 7 overall in the 2021 NBA draft. ESPN reported that after our show concluded last week, late last week, the Golden State Warriors finally upped their offer from a 2-year, $45 million contract with a team option in that second year, all the way up to a 3-year deal worth around $72.5 million. That third year being a team option. But I'm surprised. I will admit, I will say here now publicly, I am surprised that this change from Golden State is not enough for Jonathan Kuminga's camp to accept this new contract proposal. The last I had heard from Kuminga's side of this equation was that getting that 2-year, $45 million deal all guaranteed and moved up, around a $50 million threshold, something more in conjunction with Josh Giddey's 4-year, $100 million contract with Chicago, that would have been enough for Jonathan Kuminga's side to really strongly consider taking Golden State's offer. So, to my understanding, with this 3-year, $70+ million deal, team option in the third year, it essentially secures Kuminga those 2 years of starter level money that I was being told they would have accepted. But I think just this notion that Golden State is going to still get the ultimate team control, the ultimate leverage point over Jonathan Kuminga's future, compared to Kuminga having the access to whether decline a player option or just enter unrestricted free agency when a deal were to expire. It seems like the fact that Golden State is still trying to push frameworks or any type of agreement that would have them with the upper hand and an ultimate leverage aspect of the future of Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors, where they have a team option in the third year, that is just something that, as of now, Kuminga's side still wants to decline. Now, until Kuminga and Golden State either agree to a contract or Kuminga takes the $7.9 million qualifying offer that it still seems, as of today's recording, Tuesday, September 16th, just after 3 o'clock Eastern time, he's very much still considering. There is still going to be some type of hope from Kuminga's side that Golden State will eventually listen to a sign and trade from either Sacramento or Phoenix or another team that could come out of the woodwork here now that training camps are getting closer. But I think we're really at the final 5-yard line here, where I would be surprised if Golden State is willing to make significant changes to keep fitting whatever the contract structure is to try to meet Kuminga's liking. This 3-year 72.5 is a pretty, in my opinion, objectively solid middle ground compared to what these two sides want. Now, again, you could just look at this directly in comparison to what Josh Giddey signed in Chicago and think that, all right, let's just call it 375 to put it basically in parameters with what Giddey signed with Chicago. It's not the same. It's not enough. It's not a 4-year, $100 million deal where all 4 of those years are guaranteed. But remember, Jonathan Kuminga doesn't necessarily want to be in Golden State long term. He wants to be paid commensurately with being a starter, and he doesn't necessarily want to be in Golden State, where a head coach like Steve Kerr has pulled him in and out of the rotation in the regular season and the postseason. What's been more attractive to him in Sacramento and Phoenix, in addition to the long-term money, has been the guaranteed, clear-cut starting power forward roles that both the Suns and Sacramento indicated he would be able to have in those respective scenarios. So to get that team option off the table, Kuminga's side has been saying they want an absolute higher salary structure, something in the $30 million average annual value range, or else they want guaranteed commitments to what his role is going to be. And that's just as much as Joe Lacob has valued Kuminga and stood up for him and wanted him back all the way at the draft when the Warriors were considering Franz Wagner as well. They're not going to be able to guarantee that because Steve Kerr has never been able to guarantee that for Jonathan Kuminga. So we're still waiting for these leverage points to twist here. Whether Kuminga gets assurances of a role at Golden State, the type of money that he's looking for, the lack of team control. But at the end of the day, I still think that we're going to get some type of agreement here now because we've seen Golden State move a little bit. And I think the Warriors have every incentive possible to get Kuminga back in Golden State, not on the qualifying offer. As we've discussed on past episodes of the show, as we've written about on my joint Substock effort with Mark Stein at the Stein line, the Warriors need to have Kuminga at a significant salary structure, something north of $20 million to, at a minimum, help them go out and trade for some reinforcement, some upgrade as they try to compete in a loaded Western Conference with Steph Curry in the waning years of his prime, with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green all still locked up under team control for 2 years. The fact that the Warriors wanted that third-year team option, I think, also goes back to that point. Golden State does not have anyone on their contract books beyond the next 2 seasons, this upcoming 25-26 campaign and the 26-27 season, that Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green are all signed for. So they still want to maintain that flexibility too. But they really need Kuminga at a $20-25 million salary, maybe even higher. I mean, Kuminga would love for it to be higher in order for them to potentially use him in a trade for someone such as, we talked about this, we wrote about it on the Stein line. Trey Murphy in New Orleans is someone the Warriors really have interest in. Someone they almost took in that 2021 NBA draft at number 14 overall when they were deciding between Trey Murphy and Moses Moody, just like the Warriors were deciding between Kuminga and Franz Wagner. So they really, really, really need Kuminga from an asset management standpoint at a number north of $8 million in average annual value. They need him far more closer to that 20, 25, maybe even 30 salary threshold. So I think we're getting closer. I think this change in the Warriors offer is showing their creativity, but I'm skeptical they're going to give up a third guaranteed year. So where's the rubber going to meet that road? Where's the leverage points? Where are they going to meet in the middle? Are they going to give Kuminga some more money? Then it gets tricky with respect to the tax apron stuff. With they want to give the full tax pyramid level to Al Horford. They want to bring back Gary Payton II and bring in D'Anthony Melton and what have you. But we're getting close. It's September 16th. We only have 2 weeks left for Kuminga to take this qualifying offer. He's prepared to go all the way to October 1st when that offer expires. So hold in, strap in, folks. We're just seeing the ball moved closer to the end zone, and we're going to keep tabs on it for you right here on our weekly NBA Insider video live stream chats. That situation is going to conclude well before Kawhi Leonard's scandal finds some type of resolution with the investigation that the NBA has employed the law firm Wachtell Lipton to get to. I saw some questions in the chat about the Lakers and Andrew Wiggins and some other questions down there about the Trailblazers. We'll get to that in a minute. But to Kawhi Leonard, the big story of the NBA right now, as there's been no games going on, as Pablo Torre finds out, that podcast run by Pablo Torre himself has been continuing to reveal information publicly. The latest over the weekend, a statement from 3 named on the record members of the finance department of this third-party company, Aspiration, that signed a $300+ million endorsement deal, sponsorship deal with the Clippers, and a separate deal with Kawhi that optically has much of the internet, probably many of you watching right now or watching a later saved version on YouTube, thinking that Kawhi and the Clippers are absolutely guilty of circumventing the salary cap because Steve Ballmer and a minority partner in Dennis Wong put money in investments, in aspiration, and then aspiration paid Kawhi Leonard out $20 million in stock options and a 4-year, $28 million endorsement deal to do nothing at all. So this is all going to be still hanging in the balance because, as we talked about last week, when I went to Adam Silver's press conference in Midtown Manhattan at the St. Regis Hotel, he said that they're going to need something more than the appearance of guilt, the appearance of wrongdoing in order to really drop a hammer on Steve Ballmer, the Clippers, and Kawhi Leonard. Now, I saw a lot of people online in response to a story I wrote about that saying, well, there's enough circumstantial evidence right here. Well, what do you want? A written confession, an email confession stating that they were in cahoots to do this? And kinda, because not for me, but for based off of what Adam Silver said, his threshold and his requirements are going to be in order to find fault ultimately and punish these guys to the nth degree. The precedent that is at stake here, and this is a league, a business that operates on precedent from contracts to what have you, is a literal paper trail. The Joe Smith situation that everyone alludes to in Minnesota in 1999 did have a written agreement between the owner at the time, Glenn Taylor, Joe Smith, and his representation that they were going to sign a smaller deal up front and then pay Joe Smith a bigger contract on his second deal once that first contract expired. Obviously, we're not expecting there to be that level of evidence from a far more sophisticated 30 years later operation. That being said, Adam Silver kind of said plain as day that we're going to need more from whatever evidence has materialized so far than the appearance of wrongdoing and impropriety in order to really levy the harshest punishment possible here. But I'm not expecting that to come anytime soon. From my conversations with powers that be on various sides of this equation, I see someone in the chat asking, does the All-Star game get impacted by this? I would be absolutely floored, and I'm being told from various people, high-level sources from around the NBA, that they do not expect any resolution to this investigation to come until after the All-Star game, when the Clippers are set to hold the whole weekend of festivities at the Intuit Dome, which is the arena that brought all this stuff with aspiration into question in the beginning. Several sources I spoke to even joked with the exact same joke that we're going to announce this. They're going to announce this punishment, these findings, whatever, in August of next year. I don't think it's necessarily going to definitively be August of next year, but they were saying that to say it's going to be much delayed, much into the future, well after this All-Star weekend, and a season that the Clippers enter with, Chris Paul on a minimum and sneaky moves that, they sent out Norm Powell. They have some nice draft moves and what have you. Bradley Beal on the buy. Like, the Clippers are anticipated to be a legitimate threat in the Western Conference this year. All this stuff is still going to be hanging over them. So we're going to wait and find out, of course, what this investigation overturns. The league is not going to make any type of ruling until this investigation comes to a completion. And the standard investigation that Wachtell Lipton has done on the NBA's behalf into Robert Sarver, the governor of the Phoenix Suns and the Clippers previously, all those investigations have taken at a minimum 6 months. So spit that out. We're looking at March at a minimum, again, post All-Star break. No one of a high-ranking authority in the NBA apparatus is expecting there to be some type of clear-cut crystallization of what's going to happen to the Clippers and Kawhi until after the All-Star break. I'm seeing a lot of questions about Andrew Wiggins. We're going to get to him again at the bottom of the show with some Eurobasket takeaways. I've seen some chats about Kuminga to Sacramento, and I'll circle back there before we get to the next item here, being that the Warriors seemingly had a real pathway to moving Kuminga to the Kings, but Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Kawhi is going to play this year like nothing's happened for sure. That is the situation right now. Until Kawhi or his uncle Dennis come out publicly and say something, which I'm not holding my breath for, they're going to have to operate as status quo. Anyway, back quick to the aside about Kuminga and Sacramento. If the Warriors thought that Malik Monk and a first round pick was net value for Jonathan Kuminga, then Kuminga would have already been a member of the Sacramento Kings. That's been on the table. That was at least floated on the table all summer long. And the Warriors, to my understanding from various people in that organization, did not view that deal as worthwhile for them to losing Jonathan Kuminga. I think they are looking at Kuminga as their one young, athletic, two-way blue chip prospect on their roster currently, who could both help them now, add athleticism on the wing behind Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, but also as a key piece to going out and getting a major piece like a Trey Murphy we mentioned. I mean, the pie in the sky target is Giannis. I don't think the Warriors will have enough to get into that conversation. That's a whole nother episode on a whole nother day. But clearly, Malik Monk and a first round pick is not what the Warriors have had in mind in exchange for Kuminga. Neither whatever expiring contracts and second round picks the Suns have put on the table for him either. Bismack Biyombo is going back to the San Antonio Spurs. That is our third item of today's show, where San Antonio continues to fortify a roster that, I mean, Bismack Biyombo doesn't scream championship contention, but it definitely shows serviceable veteran joining a group that already has serviceable veterans, where San Antonio, behind Victor Wembanyama, certainly has aspirations and a clear-cut goal to compete for bare minimum the play-in tournament, where I've heard some really strong things about Victor Wembanyama playing in open runs in Los Angeles this summer, where there's a lot of optimism that the Spurs behind Victor are going to be a threat in the West. The Spurs have also kind of always been going back and forth between trying to calculate and determine and test out whether or not Victor Wembanyama is best as a five-man or best as a four-man. That's been going back to his rookie year. They saw a lot of success with him in both positions. They kind of originally wanted him to play at the power forward position to spare him physical contact that comes at the five spot with big, burly 7-footers. And the league is obviously scaled down, but there's been even less, bumping and bruising that happens at the four spot. I think adding in another big man into their front court shows that San Antonio is going to have even more combinations to play with. Remember, they brought in Kelly Olynyk on a trade. They brought Luke Cornett in as a free agent on a 4-year deal this summer. So San Antonio, I saw someone in this in the chat saying that Biz is not a factor anymore. Sure, we said he's not going to throw San Antonio from play-in contender to surefire playoff team to championship contender. But the way I look at all these moves around the NBA as data points that all kind of connect and add up to something bigger, this to me is another clear sign that the Spurs are kind of loading up their front court like a pitcher's bullpen, and they're going to have various combinations and a lot of different 7-footers to throw out instead of Victor Wembanyama, next to Victor Wembanyama. They're going to be big, they're going to be long, and they're going to really utilize a lot of different roster and lineup combinations as they really get into the first full season with Mitch Johnson as head coach and their first year really of a team post rebuild. Of course, they're welcoming in the number 2 pick in the draft and Dylan Harper. He's going to be sidelined for a bit due to an injury. And that's, something that typically that sequence of events would be more characteristic of a team that is rebuilding. But that number 2 pick was a stroke of fortune from the lottery gods. And this is a group that, after trading for De'Aaron Fox, most notably at the trade deadline, trying to get their point guard of the future, and now to pair with Victor Wembanyama, they are going forward. And the Spurs are going to have as formidable a front court as any team in the Western Conference, of course, headlined by the 7'5" French phenom, who I would think is almost a lock to be one of the 8 international players that are going to be part of this new 3-team round robin all-star format that we do see at Intuit Dome for All-Star Weekend in Los Angeles this upcoming February. Our fourth topic is a question that producer Dean typed into our rundown and that a rival front office executive texted me today, which is, what are the Nets doing? If you were not glued to your phone or checking your BR alerts yesterday, the Brooklyn Nets, for cash, took on the former first round pick of the Atlanta Hawks, Kobe Buffkin, which you could ask yourself or say to yourself, okay, do the Nets just really like this Michigan product and want to give him an opportunity to grow? The Hawks were kind of trying to gauge his trade value for a bit here, and it's not so surprising to me that we see him moved in a salary dump that creates a $4.5 million traded player exception for the Hawks. Buffkin was a draft pick of the former front office led by Landry Fields, not this new regime with Ansi Sala elevated and Peter Dinwiddie from Philadelphia and Bryson Graham coming over from New Orleans. But they don't get a draft pick here, they being Brooklyn. And Buffkin is a guard who needs the ball in his hands to revive any type of trade value or any type of standing and skill set that put him in a position to be a first round pick. And that's the same position that Yegor Demon is going to play, and Ben Saraf is going to play, and Danny Wolf is going to have the ball in his hands. And all these rookies that Brooklyn brought in are all on-ball playmakers, not to mention whenever Cam Thomas gets in the game, he's going to be looking to get his in order to play his way into the contract he's looking for after taking his own qualifying offer. The only restricted free agent so far to take his qualifying offer. We are waiting to see what's going to happen with Quentin Grimes still in Philadelphia, of course. So, to me, the Nets move of flipping Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. and a future first round pick, an unprotected pick, was defensible at a minimum. I saw the logic for sure. Michael Porter Jr. started on a championship team, when healthy, when in rhythm. He's one of the best shooters in the league. He's 6'10". He can guard up multiple positions when he's engaged. He had really shown some improved defensive, at least awareness, let alone just length and chops in Denver, as much as Michael Malone and his coaching staff, had headaches trying to develop him. There is, I think, the opportunity for Porter Jr. to play well enough to show ongoing health that the Nets could flip him in theory at some point when he becomes an expiring contract. Kobe Buffkin, I don't think has any trade value around the NBA. I thought the Nets move of bringing in Haywood Highsmith was smart because they got compensated to do so from the Miami Heat, which allowed the Heat to skirt some luxury tax savings. And then Highsmith on a deal that's below the taxpayer mid-level exception is going to absolutely have some interest from contenders around the NBA. So I understand that. This move, I think, was a little bit more of a head scratcher, a little bit more of an eyebrow raiser, and one that at least one rival executive, just like producer Dean, texted me, what are the Nets doing? They still have 4 partially non-guaranteed contracts that they are going to have to part ways with here. Buffkin is guaranteed for this season. They have a team option for next year, which I would expect will be declined at this juncture. I don't think that's a bold thing to say. But for now, the Nets just have all these pieces that are going to struggle to fit and develop as they are. You don't just have to take on players as a salary dump landing spot unless this is just baldly math to try to get to the salary floor that all teams have to do at a certain point in time. But I'm accepting this question. I'm bringing it to the people on the Bleacher Report NBA Insider live stream to posit a second question, and that what is going to be the extent of Brooklyn serving as this third team salary cap destination? Remember, Brooklyn already worked with Atlanta earlier in the offseason to help facilitate the Kristaps Porzingis trade to the Hawks, where the Hawks then awarded Brooklyn a first-round pick, the number 22 pick in June's draft, in exchange for bring back in Terrence Mann, who's another guy who could be tradable again as well. But the Buffkin deal, I think, was more of a what does Brooklyn really stand to gain from this? There's 100 grand in cash really benefit the Nets so much to help Atlanta get off of this money. Are they just continuing to develop goodwill with a new front office? Who's to say? But I wonder what the extent is fully going to be of Brooklyn being able to continue to serve as a salary dumping third party at a certain point in time if the cost is going to be this low. That's kind of what I'm getting at. If you want to set the precedent that, we need 2 second round picks or we need, this type of draft compensation in order to help you, what does it say to take on a rookie scale contract for just cash? I don't know what the real benefit is to Brooklyn for this one. Our final topic of the day, Eurobasket takeaways. And we are going to start with Dennis Schroeder and Germany taking gold, where Dennis Schroeder once again took home MVP honors, which he also claimed, if you recall, MVP of the 2023 FIBA World Cup in Manila when I was there, and Germany took gold in that tournament as well. Particularly for Dennis Schroeder, what the smartest international minds are saying is that this all but guarantees that Dennis Schroeder is going to be enshrined in the Basketball Hall of Fame. There are only 6 players in the history of FIBA play who have both a Eurobasket and a FIBA World Cup MVP. All of them are in the Hall of Fame, including Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tony Kukoc, and Drazen Petrovic. We've already seen the longevity of Dennis Schroeder's NBA career, bouncing back from a tough first Lakers stint, becoming a 6th Man of the Year candidate in Oklahoma City, finding his way to Toronto, resuscitating his career, being the lead guard in Brooklyn. He then got a little caught up in Golden State and that Jimmy Butler deal, but found a really strong home with Detroit, to the point where Sacramento and their new GM, Scott Perry, came in and said, I want Dennis Schroeder to be our starting point guard. But his European career is so decorated at this point that just being a journeyman NBA player is going to be far and away enough, coupled with a Eurobasket championship, a FIBA World Cup championship, 2 MVP awards. And who's to say that Germany won't come back and try and be able to defend their gold medal in FIBA in the World Cup again next summer? And Germany is going to loom as one of the more formidable threats for Team USA, in addition to Canada and France, and however Slovenia, which Luka Doncic just carried, can fare in the Olympics when they come back around to Los Angeles as well. So Dennis Schroeder and Germany aren't going away anytime soon, and he's only going to continue to be able to add to his Hall of Fame resume based off of this European career that has been truly one of the better stints that we've seen really ever, let alone in some time. I mean, he certainly has surpassed Patty Mills in Australia. He's put on a run that would be arguably better than what Manu Ginobili has done in Argentina, aside from winning Olympic gold. So, I mean, Dennis Schroeder has really just put together quite an impressive resume for the German team, and his teammate Isaac Bonga I think is another big takeaway from Eurobasket, the former Lakers draft pick. He definitely has drawn some NBA interest. He's going to be going back to Partizan Belgrade and playing in Serbia this year, but he shot 45% from 3 as a 2-way defender for Germany in this tournament. And he's definitely back on the NBA radar, just like we saw someone like Gershon Abuseli, a former first-round pick, do for France in the Olympics a year ago, play his way back to Philly, and then sign a 2-year deal with the Knicks. Isaac Bonga is definitely someone that I would keep on your radar to be returning to the NBA sometime in the near future. The other huge takeaway from Eurobasket is that Luka Doncic being spry, dominant, leading a very undermanned Slovenia team deep into the tournament has definitely emboldened the Lakers to soften their stance that they're not going to be so aggressive in adding reinforcements to this Lakers team. And they're now being characterized both by my writing partner Mark Stein at the Steinline Substack and Dan Wojcicki at the Athletic as eager to look for opportunities to add two-way wings. And a name that came up in both of those stories, one name that we've heard has been linked to the Lakers that Warriors personnel have told me the Lakers have had interested in from some time, is Miami Heat swingman Andrew Wiggins. So the chat's been asking. Wiggins is definitely someone that is on the Lakers' radar that we are going to be probably talking and writing about as a Lakers trade target once we get closer to February, because I do anticipate, just as Miami moved off of Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson to bring back Norm Powell on an expiring deal, and they flipped Haywood Highsmith to get under the tax and bring on Drew Smith, I think the Heat are not likely to be a major factor in the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And I think we are trending down a path where Miami is going to be one of perhaps the biggest sellers of the 2026, trade deadline. And if we do get to that point in time, who knows? Eric Spoelstra is a wizard, and he could turn a scrap heap into scrap metal and take that metal into a well-oiled machine, and maybe the Miami Heat are vying for a playoff spot once again. But if they're not, Andrew Wiggins is going to have a lot of trade interest. Norm Powell will have trade interest on an expiring contract. The Heat are already trying to get Terry Rozier to sign a buyout. I don't think that's going to happen, but if he comes back on the floor and plays decently and this gambling stuff disappears, or at least is not considered damaging to his chances of playing long term and a potential theoretical NBA suspension, whatever. If he does play well enough and can secure through back channeling a buyout landing spot, I think then that suddenly becomes a plausible scenario too. But we're definitely putting Andrew Wiggins on the Lakers trade radar. He's someone, again, that Los Angeles has shown interest in dating back to when Wiggins was still a member of the Warriors. And the Lakers definitively are going to be looking for two-way wings. They know they need two-way wings around Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and company. So we're going to see what could and who could be coming down the pipeline in between those guards and playmakers and DeAndre Ayton up front. For now, that's all we have for you for today's show. We are going to be coming back to you in our regularly scheduled Thursday programming next week, but we appreciate you all for tuning in today. We appreciate you on YouTube checking us out in the aftermath, and we'd appreciate it if you came back again next week for another NBA Insider video live stream notebook right here on the one and only Bleacher Report app. See ya.